The hum of the engines filled the cabin as passengers settled into their luxury seats, the promise of a smooth journey ahead. But for two black twins, the evening would become a test of dignity and resilience. They had worked their entire lives to afford this level of comfort, only to be told, loud enough for the whole of the first-class cabin to hear, that their seats didn't belong to them. The flight attendant's sharp eyes and dismissive tone made one thing clear. This wasn't about protocol. It was about race. Whispers spread, phones discreetly raised to capture the moment. What happened next would not only shake an airline's reputation, but send a message heard around the world. Watch until the end to see how justice finally caught up. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories just like this one. Amara and Amani, twin sisters in their late 20s, had spent years chasing dreams bigger than anyone expected. Born in a small town where opportunities were scarce, they pushed themselves through endless nights of study, scholarships, and eventually built thriving businesses of their own. Success had not come easily, but it had finally given them something they long dreamed of: freedom to live on their terms. This flight was supposed to be a celebration. They were headed to an international conference where Amara would speak about women in tech, and Amani would represent their nonprofit dedicated to mentoring young girls of color. Dressed in elegance that matched their seats, they felt proud, comfortable, and finally seen for what they had achieved. But as the cabin doors closed and the flight attendant approached with clipped steps, the air shifted. Her eyes lingered on them longer than anyone else. A moment that should have felt victorious was about to turn into something far darker. The attendant leaned in, her tone laced with authority. She insisted the twins were mistakenly seated in VIP and that they should move to standard business at the back. Confused, Amara held up her ticket, perfectly valid. Amani calmly pointed to the name on the boarding pass. Still, the woman refused to budge, her voice rising so others could hear. Passengers exchanged glances, some avoiding eye contact, others whispering as though they'd just witnessed a spectacle. The humiliation stung. The twins weren't strangers to racism, but here, in a space where they had every right to belong, it cut deeper. Their achievements and sacrifices seemed to vanish in that moment, under the weight of a stereotype they couldn't escape. One passenger quietly mouthed, "Record it." Amara's trembling hand lifted her phone. The lens caught the dismissive smirk on the attendant's face, the way she gestured toward them as if they were intruders. Tension crackled through the cabin. As more attendants arrived, instead of resolving the issue, they stood by their colleague. The twins were cornered, facing not just one voice of authority, but an entire crew complicit in their erasure. Still, Amara and Amani refused to move. Every second felt like a storm building toward a breaking point. The injustice was plain, undeniable, and now captured for the world to see. The plane had not even left the ground, and already the story was no longer theirs alone. It was a story that could ignite outrage and change. The confrontation reached its peak when the attendant summoned the captain. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, some muttering that this was going too far. The captain repeated the demand. Either the twins switched seats, or they would be escorted off the flight. Gasps echoed through the cabin, but then came the turning point. Amara stood, her voice steady, announcing to everyone that the incident was being live-streamed. Within minutes, hundreds of viewers were tuned in, leaving furious comments and tagging the airline. Phones throughout the cabin were raised now, no longer silent witnesses but active participants. The attendants faltered, realizing the power had shifted. What once was an isolated act of prejudice had become a public scandal unfolding in real time. When the captain threatened removal again, Amara delivered the final blow. She had already contacted their legal team and the Civil Rights Board. The plane fell into stunned silence. The balance of power had flipped. The flight eventually departed, but not before the airline scrambled into damage control. By the time the plane landed, the live stream had gone viral, news outlets were calling, and the video had spread worldwide. The airline issued a public apology, but the damage was irreversible. Within days, the entire crew involved in the incident was fired. For Amara and Amani, the ordeal left scars, but also a renewed sense of purpose. They hadn't just stood up for themselves, they had stood for millions who were silenced in moments like these. Their victory wasn't just about 2 seats in first class. It was about dignity, equality, and the undeniable truth that racism had no place in the skies, or anywhere else. Their story became a symbol, sparking debates about representation, bias training, and accountability within the airline industry. But the question remains, how many more lives will be humiliated before real change takes flight? Tell us, which country and city are you watching from? Take care.